Hey guys, it's Kevin again, here to finally review the Angry Birds movie. And what the Angry Birds movie is essentially about is we center on our main character, Red, and he is someone who has very aggressive anger issues, and that has caused him to become a bit of an outcast, and he's finally trying to do some about going into, like, anger management and things like that, and while he is there, on this island, the rest of the birds that are there are being populated by these pigs. They seem to come out of nowhere, and they seem to at first come in peace. It seems like things are, they're just trying to help cultivate the land and things like that, and all the birds seem to be really warming up to them. However, once Red gets back, he starts to feel very doubtful of what they're doing, and that's really all I'm going to say. So, Angry Birds movie, yes, another 2016 animated film that I did not see. I don't know what was wrong with me in 2016, I guess I just didn't watch a lot of animated movies, but regardless, I have not seen this one, and I remember not really thinking much of this. Like, I wasn't really dreading it or anything, but at the same time, I was really questioning, like, why it was really a thing. Why do we need an Angry Birds movie? What can you do with this story to make it feel warranted? And I just didn't know how it was going to be, and after finally seeing it, it's alright. I will not say this is like on the level of Secret Life of Pets where it's incredibly mediocre, but it doesn't really do a lot to justify its existence either, but we're just getting to right now, starting off with the cast. And for the most part, that's one of the best things I think about this entire film. I think most of the voice cast is actually really great. Jason Sudeikis as Red, even when he was casted at first, I pretty much always thought that this was perfect casting. I think he does a really great job in this role, just playing this really cynical bird, but one that also clearly wants to have a lot of friends and clearly does want to get over these issues that he's having, and I think he overall does do a really good job. He definitely is the character with the most depth in the film, and I overall really did like him here, and I thought overall you could tell that he also was having a lot of fun playing this role for sure, and it very much does show here. Another one that was really a big standout for me was Danny McBride as this character, Boom, who, I've always really liked Danny McBride, but I honestly think he did a way better job than he could have here. I was very impressed by his performance. He seemed to be having a lot of fun for sure, and I definitely do think he did some good stuff here, and I was overall impressed by him, but maybe the big standout of the entire film besides Jason Sudeikis, and this is a fairly small role, Sean Penn as this character, Terrence. I fucking loved this character. He was so good here, and honestly, there's not much he has to do in this role. I mean, most of Terrence's role is just him going, but somehow Penn is able to make it work. Penn is able to add a lot of fun to this character, and I thought he did a very good job voicing this this character. Again, even if he didn't need to do that much, I was overall really impressed by him, and I definitely really liked what he did here. Then the rest of the cast, I think, also does a really good job. Bill Hader is very good as the main pig, who you do legitimately, he does a really good job of kind of convincing you that he is on the right side of things and things like that, and I thought he did a good job. Peter Dinklage as the Mighty Eagle is extremely well casted, and similar to all the actors, you can tell he's having a lot of fun here for sure. Keegan-Michael Key, Kay McKinnon, Rudolph, I mean, everyone really does do a good job. And then we get to Josh Gad. Once again, this is another situation where we have another actor that I normally really do like, but he's in a role that is just not suiting him at all. I think what happened here is they saw how good Josh Gad was in, like, Frozen, and how good he was as Olaf, and they're like, alright, how can we try to replicate that? And it didn't really work here at all. Chuck is extremely annoying, and Gad does not do much to really elevate this character. To me, it basically seemed like he was trying to do Olaf, but like if Olaf was on like ecstasy or something. This did not work at all. I was not a fan of Gad in this role. I normally really do like him, but this is just one of those roles that I just do not think suit him well at all. Although he does have good chemistry with Sudeikis and Danny McBride. Those three do work really well together and definitely do anchor the film quite well. And really the entire cast, like I said, did put a lot more effort into this than you really would expect them to, and I can definitely give them that for sure. Now we get to the directing and the writing, and this is where things get a little bit rocky. Now, I will say the directing in this film really isn't all that bad. They knew exactly what kind of movie they were trying to make, and I do think they did a good job with that for the most part. The problem is when we get to the humor in this film is genuinely very confusing because it fluctuates between humor that is very much for kids and then stuff that is very, very adult. And I mean adult to the point where it's not even subtle. There are so many sex jokes in this movie, and it's not just like, you know, parallels them. Like, no, they're pretty blatant. There's like a ton of puns in this movie that they clearly are just using because they can't say fuck and things like that. There's literally a scene where Red says, I'm plucked up right now, or I'm gonna, I'm plucked up or something like that. Like, they use a lot of bird puns just to, hide the swear words and things like that. And again, like, obviously this stuff you're hoping is gonna go over a kid's head, but it's genuinely hard to tell, like, who they were really trying to market it for, and the film does get pretty dirty at points, and that's something that I was very surprised by for sure. It's just how the humor was done. And you go from something like that, that's really dirty, to a scene that's like Peter Dinklage just pissing, and we see it and everything. So, the film has a real problem with, like, who its target audience really is, and look, I'm fine with them catering to both kids and adults, but the kids stuff is very, very kiddie, and the adult stuff is really, really dirty. So, it's like, they needed more of a medium there, and it just wasn't there, and I hope that's something that they're able to fix in the sequel, because here it's just a little confusing with who it's supposed to be targeted towards. Because here it's just a little too extreme with, like, who it's supposed to be targeted towards. But the overall tone, I thought they did a pretty good job with. The film knows what it is, and I can't really say too much about that. Though I don't think there's too much of a style here. The directing overall is pretty good. The writing, though, is easily my biggest issue with this film, because there are some things I think they do here that are really good. Red, for example, we do actually get into his backstory quite well. The first 5 minutes is really kind of peeling back the layers of him, the difficulties he's had fitting in, how angry he does get, and how this has caused him to, feel isolated and things like that. And they actually do a really good job with that. The problem is they don't really build on it all that much. Red does change as a character, but it feels like we needed a little bit more than, oh, he just gets angry sometimes. That he really has really bad anger issues. I wish we could have delved into that a little bit more. And they do a good job with seeing him sort of evolve from someone who has really bad anger issues to someone who does become a genuine leader. But it just felt like they could have fleshed that out a bit more, and I think they definitely could have done some more work there. But easily the biggest problem, but overall, I do think his story was pretty good. Red's a character that I did feel genuinely compelled by. And there are some other characters here that I thought were a lot of fun. Like I said, Boom was a character I very much enjoyed. Just this bird who literally just, whenever he gets angry, he literally explodes. And I don't mean like explodes in the sense where he gets angry. No, he'll literally explode. Such a fun character, and I think they did some cool stuff with him. Terrence, as I said before, was probably my favorite character in this movie besides Red. I thought he was just a ton of fun. So yeah, there are some genuinely really entertaining characters here that I do think worked out pretty well. The problem with this movie, though, is really its main story. Because of the fact that we know the mobile app, and we know the premise of the mobile app, we know they're going to implement that. So having this story with the pigs being so welcoming and Red being in doubt about it just isn't very compelling because you already know where it's going to go. So the film becomes very predictable because of that. And also because of that, I was pretty much checking out because I knew where it was going to go, and it just doesn't do a lot to really expand upon that. And I feel like there's a lot more they could have done than just, oh, the pigs seem like, they're really welcoming and that they really want to help us out, but they clearly have some sort of ulterior motive. I feel like there could have been a little bit more there, but there really isn't. It's pretty basic that at first the birds are pretty much led into believing that, yes, they are on their side, but it's pretty obvious that they're going there. We're just kind of waiting for that other shoe to drop. We know Red is correct, so nothing in this movie ends up being a surprise, and that's not usually really a huge problem for me. You know, there are things with predictability that can work for me, but this is one of those cases where the story needed more than just that. And because that there's not really a lot they're able to do to justify their existence. And that definitely does become a problem here for sure. And that definitely did bring the film down for me. I think they could have done a lot more on that side of things, and I wasn't really impressed by that. Once we get into the third act, though, the film does become a little bit better, because that's when we start to get more into, like, what the mobile app is and things like that, and they get to play around with things a little bit more. And I was overall entertained by that third act, but at the same time, I wasn't too entertained, just because the first two acts did not do enough to fully hook me in the way they could have, and I think they could have done more there, but I was never necessarily bored by this movie. I wouldn't say that it's boring at all. It's not as interesting as it could have been. Like, I was always keeping, you know, I was always not necessarily invested, but I was always interested in, like, where it would go, and I just don't think they did enough here to really justify their existence, and I wish there was a little more they did, but overall I thought the writing was okay, minus Chuck, who, like I said, just did not work for me at all. Most of these characters, yes, they are very much just the kind of bird they are and what they can do, but Chuck is the definition of just a character that's inserted in here because they're trying to make him, like, the huge highlight of the film, and it just does not work at all. I found this character really annoying. He very often got on my nerves. It's not like Snowball in Secret Life of Pets or something like that, where I really can't stand that character at all, as you guys know. But this guy, this character definitely was a bit annoying, and I think they could have done more than just have him say a bunch of really bad jokes, and I don't really think that worked overall. So yeah, the writing's not very good here. The animation, though, I will say, is gorgeous in this movie. They clearly did take a lot of time looking at the app and think, okay, how can we translate this to 3D animation? And I think it actually converted pretty well. The world building is very good in this movie, just the landscapes and things like that. It's genuinely breathtaking at points, and, you know, obviously I didn't see this in the theaters or anything like that, but I do feel like it would really pop if you saw this in the theaters, and it does make me excited to get back into that world for the sequel. It's like the only thing I'm looking forward to in the sequel is just seeing that gorgeous animation again, because it is definitely very colorful, and the fur on the birds, I mean, just the detail on them, it's so good. It just feels so real, like you could just reach out and just, like, feel the feathers and things like that. I mean, it's really well done the way they do the animation here, and the look of all the birds as well. They all look pretty distinct from each other, and I think they did a really good job with that. So, and also just, you know, the transfer from the mobile app to the characters, I mean, it's spot on in terms of 3D animation. So yeah, I think they did some really, really great stuff when it comes to the animation here. It's definitely one of the best things about the film. It might be the best thing about the film, honestly. It's gorgeous to look at, and because it's hard to look away just because of how gorgeous everything does look. But the score here is fine. Not really much to say there, though I really did not like Blake Shelton's song at all. And the editing, the film is well paced for the most part, but I do kind of wish it had an additional, like, 10 to 15 minutes just to flesh out some things a little bit more. I feel like that could have made for a better film overall, but for the most part, Angry Birds movie is fairly average. It's not anything that annoyed me. It's not anything that, you know, I was, you know, wishing that I was watching something else, but it didn't do enough, I feel like, to fully justify its existence, and that definitely does hurt the film. Jason Sudeikis, Danny McBride, Peter Dinklage, Sean Penn, those really are the big standouts, and they're all really having a lot of fun, way more than you would really expect them to. It's just the story overall was extremely predictable, and I feel like they could have done more to add some layers there that just weren't, and make this film feel a bit more warranted, because at the end of the day, there's not a ton they do to really do that, and that is a bit unfortunate for sure. But overall, guys, I didn't hate this film or anything. I think it is a fairly average film. I think it's something that kids are definitely going to enjoy. I do think it has a problem, like I said, when it comes to the humor. It's not as well balanced as it could be, but overall, I do feel like this could have turned out a lot worse. So I am going to give the Angry Birds movie overall a C+. But overall, guys, in my review, the Angry Birds movie, let me know what you guys saw this movie overall, left your thoughts on it. I am sorry that it took me so long to review this film, but I am definitely going to be seeing the sequel later today. Hopefully, we'll be able to get my review out for that as well, so definitely look forward to that. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.